Hey, everybody. We're back with Two Girls and Two Coasts on this solemn Sunday of yet another massive distraction. Um, we do want to have a longer pod about what happened in Venezuela, but we're waiting for more information to come in, the dust to settle. But let's make one thing very crystal clear. This MAGA regime broke a law in the Constitution. It does not have congressional approval for what it did. And let's also be clear, we do not like Maduro. The world can't stand him. He's a dictator. He hates his people. He hurts his people. He kills his people. Yes, we all want him gone. And two things can be right at the same time.
Mhm. Also
Horrible person,
Yep.
um, more corruption just sweeping in as
One
Trump regime
Of
sweeps
course,
in.
of course. And also, please understand, everybody, this is just another act of desperation, okay, to turn us all away from the Epstein files so that we can look the other way. Do not stop, resist, keep it up. Do not stop. This guy is a criminal and he needs to be in prison. He doesn't care about the American people. He doesn't care about the Venezuelan people. He doesn't care about anyone except for himself and his greedy, rich friends. Okay? So understand that this whole thing with Venezuela is just a deflection. It's a tactic. Okay?
One of the
So
oldest tactics in the book, wag the dog, while Jack Smith reads the entire transcript of his guilt, and he should be in prison if he didn't win the presidency.
he shouldn't have been able to run for president, as far as I'm concerned. So,
That is
ugh,
like something we are all always wrapping our heads around is how someone this brutally evil, law-breaking, lying, I mean, just absolutely pathological. And the day he gives the okay to bomb, wasn't he bragging that he had another cognitive test? I mean, what we're dealing with is just so out of the ordinary.
yeah.
Don't lose track. Yes, we're happy
Mhm.
Maduro's gone, but not this way. This is the wrong way to do it.
Yep. Absolutely.
We are Americans. We have a democracy. We have a congressional approval for war resolution. That's
Mhm.
how it happens, not
Mhm.
like imperialist bullshit that we are supposed to be never doing ever again.
Mhm.
Okay,
Oh my
so
god.
we are going to talk about something fun today. We're going to have a special guest. We're going to bring him on in a minute. Um, and I don't know, it's going to be pretty heated conversation, don't you think, Chris?
Pretty heated. I'm excited to talk about it. Yes, it's like the rage in America right now. And it's good because it is a little bit of a distraction from the disaster in the White House.
Yeah,
So,
maybe be happy about because we're evolving as humans and I love it. All right, so
yay.
we're going to bring him on.
Yeah, let's do this.
Welcome, Stephen Reader.
Yay, Stephen.
Hey,
Reader, welcome
ladies. Thanks
back.
for having me back.
Yay, we're so happy to have you back, Stephen. So good to talk to you and see you. Happy New Year, my friend.
Happy New Year. I hope everybody had a great
New Year.
holiday. I know there's a lot going on. You have to be living under a rock to know that we just invaded the country and kidnapped their president. But I think let's take Sunday and talk about something a little more cheerful.
Yeah, exactly. Like the
Welcome it.
craze, this fabulous show on HBO Max, which is called, Stephen.
Heated rivalry.
Yeah.
I think
Yay.
zeitgeist is the word that we're looking for, right?
Right.
You know, everybody on Earth has interviewed and covered and has been talking about it. And I'll have
Mhm.
to say, I've
Mhm.
been the happiest the last 2 weeks that I've been all year. So I think there's something to be said for not listening to what's going on in the world and kind of putting yourself in your own little bubble, if you
Mhm.
will. But this bubble happens to be really interesting because it's not just me and it's not just a select few. It's really taken the world by storm, which is kind of amazing. And I wanted to talk to you two ladies about it and get your perspective and see what your thoughts were on the subject.
Let's break it down real quick. We're talking about, yes, heated rivalry, because when I bring it up to my friends, straight white girls, they're like, "What? Tell me more." Heated rivalry is based on a novel with the same name by Rachael Reid from a book series called Game Changers. It's not
Correct.
based on true story. They're not copies of actual people, but they're actual rivalries of hockey players that were not in love in real world, but they had the rivalry, right, Steven? About
Cool. I think it's all like romantic fiction. Right? And it was written by this woman named Rachael Reid, as you mentioned, who basically grew up in Nova Scotia and was enthralled by hockey and wanted to be a player herself. And I believe she played for a year or two when she was young. And she just started writing the series. I think some of it was based on players that she was following or maybe fantasizing about. I'm not sure, but she started this idea of of these rivalries because hockey is such a big sport in Canada. And I think it started that way, it kind of organically. And then she just basically, I think the first book in the series was called Game Changers, which was not written about the two main characters of Heated Rivalry. And then she just kind of developed all these characters. And the irony of it is that it's written by a woman.
Hmm.
A lot of it's romance, which can't speak for all gay men, but I'm not into romance. I've never picked up romance. I've never read romance. I just remember my mother reading her Harlequin romances with her cup of
Hmm.
coffee and her cigarette, like just
Hmm. Yeah.
in her book. And then looking
Hmm.
at the cover of the book, later what I find out, there were male models that would pose for these pictures, then they'd be painted on the book. So it was just, I was like, what are you reading, Mom? She couldn't put it down.
Yeah.
So it's all very interesting. We talked about this briefly before we went on, just the craze. I think there's like different levels of why everyone's so, what's the word, why they're so moved, why they're so enthralled. And
Hmm.
that's what I hope to discuss with you, to get a woman's perspective. Also, mine as an older gay man, I was just blown away. Like, I just saw the momentum and then the algorithms. I just had no idea. And
Hmm.
then, getting on Threads, and like, I'd never been on Threads before. I had it, I never used it. And now all of these people using Threads to commentate and tune in. It's just become this whole community, and just reading what everybody's writing. It was so emotional. And you're just like, wow. As I got further into it, there were parts of it that resonated so much with me personally. And even though I'm not 25 years old and I'm not a hockey player, this is my take. The interesting thing is it's written by a woman. So it's a woman's perspective on man romance, which we're not really used to. So it's got an innate tenderness to it that normally doesn't happen.
Yeah, because it's
Gay,
coming from a woman's
this
perspective. Yeah.
woman's perspective.
Hmm. Yeah.
And then to see it acted out by these hunky, like beautiful young men in this sport that's completely known for its brutal and brutalization.
Yeah.
Realism.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and broism, it's like it screws with our brain a little bit because it's like wow, everything's a little off kilter here. So you go into it, and I think the bonus was that nobody knew really who these actors were. I mean, one of them is pretty
Right.
well known. He comes in later, but to have these unknown actors where you don't have anything on them. So they embody the entire character. The one actor, Connor Story, who did such an amazing job of embodying the Russian attitude, the Russian language. He learned, I think, in like 2 weeks how to speak Russian. I mean, it's
What?
crazy. Yeah,
So
I
he's
did not
American, right? He's
know.
American
he's
or
American. He's from
Canadian?
Texas. He has not one
Oh,
Slavic like ounce of blood in his body.
Now I'm
Like,
really blown away.
so
yeah.
exactly. And then it's so I think there's like the level of, okay, let's watch the whole thing and let's be moved by it and let's see. And then for us as producers who've been in the business, who know what it takes to create a photo shoot, a video, let alone a film series, to know that it was done in Canada entirely. They never left, I believe, Ontario, Ottawa, Toronto, to create this whole like world. And then to see how they did it such a small budget in 37 weeks, it's an amazing feat.
Yeah.
Because it was done beautifully.
It's
Hmm.
done so beautifully. And then as I've been sending them, both of you guys, everybody, but everyone's sending things and back and forth, but I've just been bombarding you guys because of all the different perspectives. First, it's about the dialogue. Then it's about the acting. Then it's about the use of the locations. And then it's about how they use lighting to tell the story. And it's so interesting because I don't think I've ever watched anything in the past where I've been wanting to go back in and know like the behind the scenes from a technical standpoint and what the intention was from the director, writer, producer, Jacob Tierney. And I'm obsessed with film. For me, I love it. I love the use of music. Let's be honest. I sent you the link, the thing
Yeah.
today. What was it?
That's
200,000, 200%. I mean, it's just mind boggling.
Yeah. I thought the storyline was a little it's in a way sad, but it turned out happy. You know what I'm saying in the end, I think. But I hate it when people are judged by, you know what I mean? Like if you're gay, you can't help if you're gay. You're just born that way and that's the way it is. And just I hate the ignorance of people and how scared they were to come out and how I felt so sad for them. It really touched me. But I was happy that in the end that it kind of worked out, you know, that Shane got
Wow.
to
Well, we
you know,
don't know that yet. That's
It's
the
a
whole second
series.
series.
Oh,
his
season
Shane
2.
Shane at least got to come out to his parents and they
Wait.
accepted him.
Okay. I was gonna
What?
say for people that haven't watched it,
Oh,
That's
sorry.
okay.
Oh, spoiler alert.
You bring
And
up
by this point, if you haven't watched it, too bad. I mean, at this point, come on. You
there's
know,
gonna be a lot of straight people that haven't checked in yet, for sure.
that's
Okay, then
true.
I was with 2 girls last night that haven't watched it, and now they're
okay.
hopefully will.
Okay.
But the other thing too, the sex was a little bit heavy duty for me. Just a little too. It was.
So
I feel like
this is one of the points that
50% of
I
each
wanted to talk
episode is
about.
sex.
Yeah, because they're young and hot, and that's what you do when you meet someone when you're
Yes.
young.
Yeah.
We were
I
there
don't know.
before. We were 25.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
but from my perspective, and what I grew up in this country watching sex scenes all my life,
Right.
gratuitous, misogynistic,
Right.
aggressive. Like I've
Yeah.
been forced to watch heterosexual sex scenes where they're showing the woman's private parts, and it wasn't necessary. They just did it. To me, this was like there was nothing, there's no pee in this at
There
all.
is
You know what I
one,
mean?
yes, when he sends him the picture of his
Heck.
bleep, on his cell phone, right before
Oh
he's
yeah,
about
but
to
that's
he
like for
texts
a
him.
second. Yes,
Yeah.
yeah, that's the
But I mean, it
second.
was
Okay.
just okay, I won't say anymore, go
Go
ahead.
ahead.
That's
I
no,
just wanna say, I
yeah.
thought that was genius move for the film because it's sexting is huge.
Yes. Well,
It's
and
huge
even
part of the culture in the last 15, 20 years.
oh,
So,
absolutely.
the
Mm,
other thing I wanna just Chris, you bring up the point of the sadness. When I was watching the first 2 episodes, I
mhm,
felt my heart was heavy that gay men have to live like this,
mhm.
hiding.
And gay
That our
women.
culture has
Yeah,
pushed down
yeah.
people and for thousands of years all over the world, obviously, that
Well,
we are
not that
still
long actually. Just it's more the patriarchal system, which couple
but
hundred years, but
okay, but I'm just thinking here we are in the best country in the world. We're killing it at the moment, but it still is supposed to be the freest and we all get to live so free and that I have so many gay friends and I feel like my women friends that are lesbians, I have more a little bit more freedom like gay men especially in bro culture and hockey sports have to pretend to be someone they're not and that breaks my heart.
Me
So I
too.
love that this show is out and was massive because these stories need to be told. These are
Mhm.
real people. So many people identify with this romance story. I love the other couple, the guy that meets him in the coffee shop or the
Skip,
shop.
The
Skip
That
and
smoothie
Scott,
guy,
yeah.
he's
I mean,
adorable.
Kip and
that is
Scott,
a
yeah.
Oh,
natural development of a
yeah.
No,
relationship, and it
well,
was
So
so
sweet.
beautiful
it
Yeah.
was, but according to the book,
and
it's
hard.
that actual book is supposedly really great because it dives more into that. But the thing that got us is that Scott. I mean, imagine he's 40 years old in real life, and I think he's supposed to be 40 years old in the show, and he's never been in love. And he couldn't because and he lost his parents. His parents were both
Mhm.
killed. The end of that, spoiler alert, that episode 5, that just floored all of us because
Yeah.
that moment is what, we all have waited for all of our lives. Some of us have had it, some of us haven't. I think whether you're a man or a woman or you're gay or you're straight, you
Absolutely.
want someone in front of the world to say, I
Yes.
choose you.
Yes.
But that moment, and you saw it on his face, which was so amazing. Like the acting was so great, where you saw every decision was going through his head, and he's like, "Fuck it, I'm going for this." But if you listen to Jacob Tierney talk about getting that shot, and he had envisioned how he wanted to do it and how brilliant it was because it was a circle, but then Ilya and the other character Shane
Watching
were
from home.
also it was also going in a circle, and like
Mhm.
just the music playing at that level to be
Mhm.
like pounding you in and adding the announcers over the music so it felt super authentic and real. Like from a director's standpoint, like that's brilliant. The whole thing was just
Nailed it.
brilliantly done. Like it was just unbelievable. And to watch Ilya, his whole body like just change when he's watching and they're both staring and they're both realizing what's happening. And it's like,
Ugh,
screams across the
heart
world. Like
melted.
that's what it was. To touch on your subject about the sadness, it's funny because that was my life. So the first couple episodes were not sad at all. It was like de rigueur. That's how life is and was. And it is in sports. We just accept it to be that. So for us, it was more about, me watching it's about the flirtation, the yearning and the drawing it out, which is also an anomaly in our culture of apps, hookups,
Yeah.
quick sex. And so to
Yeah, hookup
have this
culture.
kind of this yearning and this kind of longing and this thing play out as long as it did, that's what got me in the first couple episodes. So that, oh my God, there's still, it was very romantic, if you will, right? And then all of a sudden they flip it to 3 and we have a whole new
Yeah,
thing. And so it's just like,
well
it piqued
done.
your interest. It
Mm-hmm.
kept you there.
Yeah.
And then
Absolutely.
and then it goes into 4, which is, look, who hasn't had to pretend to have back in the day to have a girlfriend? I mean, I
Yeah.
remember high school. I mean, I had girls that were in love with me and it killed me. I couldn't,
Be yourself.
be
Yes.
myself. And it killed me for them because I couldn't tell them why. I just had to be like, I don't like you because
Yeah.
I didn't want to involve myself in something that I knew would be hypocritical. And
Right.
lots of people get married. Lots of people have children. Lots of people.
Mother-in-law. After
Yeah.
my sister died, he came out.
Wow.
15 years ago, my sister died. Mhm.
Wow. As a, 59-year-old man, I'm watching these young kids and thank God I was able to do what they're doing at that age. But it's also a little nostalgic because at the beginning you're sad for different reasons. I was
Mhm.
sad like, wow, will I ever have that kind of unbridled passion again? Will I ever be able to, be ruled by my testosterone more than my head? All those
Yeah.
things. But
Mhm.
then by the arc of 5,
Mhm.
that's not what it's about. And
Mhm.
so what started off with sadness by the end of 5 was like tears of joy because, oh my God, yes, actually I could have that. I could have this, and then by 6, seeing that how they're taking care of each other. Yes, I understand they involved the sex, which I'm glad they did because that's definitely part of 2 gay men. But what we've witnessed in the past has never shown that kind of tenderness.
Right.
Mhm.
What we've always witnessed in the past is someone's HIV positive and sick and dies. Either we're child molesters or we're murderers somebody always has to die at the end because God forbid the gays go off and live happily ever after. And
Right.
like, you know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you
Here
mean.
the point I wanna say, though, about the sadness is, that a gay man has to constantly feel like, "Okay, what's the plan?" Or, "I'm gonna come out in 3 years when I get to this goal of the hockey." And he does come out, after a certain goal, obviously, we all know
Yeah.
that. I'm gonna ruin it for people that but it always has to be, "We have to wait. We have to put this aside because I have to do this first because that's the culture. I won't be accepted if I'm myself." And that's what I'm, saying. So that
Yeah. It's
what
very
the
sad.
show does is say, "You know what? We really as humans need to look at this because number 1 is always who you are and nothing else should matter." As straight people, like, are so used to, seeing all these hetero relationship movies and series and things, like, this is so normal and so natural and so well done, wonderful that everyone needs to see it.
Interesting because that was like our friend Lori's comment. Oh, the set. All my straight girl, some of the the sets. And it's very interesting to know where these people are in their lives.
Mhm.
Now, the younger population, the Gen Zs, the Gen whatever,
Mhm.
um, that they don't even care about that. That's why so it's not even bothering them. And it's interesting, Kristen, we had a little text thing, and she's like, "Are the actors gay?" And that's the next question. It doesn't matter.
But it
Nobody, no, but it doesn't. They're
No, 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 I know where
actors.
I see that. I see how that does make sense. I do. I get that from you. But I wanna know if how good of actors they really are because I don't know how a straight man would be able to play that. That was
But
so
see,
intense romantically.
that's
Should play
because
that.
you need to fit it into a place in your head that makes sense to you because we've been so conditioned to ask those questions.
Mm.
And that's the thing, because we don't know who they are, we don't really, or we can surmise, but that's not the point. The point
Well,
is
let me
it shouldn't matter because women play roles. How many women play roles that they have to have sex with men? and they don't want to have sex with those men.
I know,
They're
I know,
misog
I get
Do
it,
you
I
know what I'm
get it.
saying?
But
So
let
it's
me
like
ask you something. If you were an actor and you had to have an intense sex scene with a woman, would you be able to do it? I would not be able to have sex with a woman at all. I mean,
It depends on the actor.
it's
I
been
guess.
look at Jonathan Bailey. I
Yeah.
mean, voted
Mhm.
sexiest man alive for 2025. I mean,
Right.
he's from Bridgerton. Why?
Yeah, I know him.
It's
Yeah, he's great.
acting. It's
Mhm.
acting. I mean, and let's be honest,
I
like
know.
today
That's why I'm not an
they
actress.
have all these people on set,
Mhm.
like what do they call them? Like the intimacy coordinators and all that stuff. And if you watch some of the interviews, like Connor said, it was difficult because Jacob filmed on a wide angle lens, which means
You can't touch
you have to be very, careful how you position yourself. And it was very hard to do, regardless of whether they were gay or straight. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
So
I was
the,
wondering
the
where the intimacy coordinators were in so many scenes, like, that would
well,
start to say, "Okay,
exactly.
now touch his arm, now kiss his neck, now that." It's
Right.
always that, and it was hard to see how he fitted.
That's what was so great because they have this chemistry between them, and that just comes across. So for me as a gay man, when people ask the question, I get infuriated. Did anybody ask Meryl Streep and Cher if they were lesbians when they made Silkwood back in 1983 or
Exactly.
82?
Good point.
Yeah,
No,
but was that, did they have
but
intense sex scenes in that movie? I don't think so. This was
you're
intense.
right.
Yeah,
You're
This
it
was
right.
was intense.
intense.
But see, when you say intense, it's funny because I think of lots of other films. Basic Instinct, that was intense.
That's
That
Okay,
was, I didn't like that one either. I'm just not a
basic.
porny type of gal. Okay.
Yeah,
You know
but
what I
that's the
mean?
thing. And so my friend Shay, the same way, she can't watch. She couldn't get past episode one, but
Right.
it's very telling. And she's postmenopausal, perimenopausal. The things aren't flowing the same way that they used to. So it's very interesting because all the young girls that are watching it are like, "Oh my god, it was so hot."
That's
There,
not true for everybody in menopause, by the way. Just
okay. Well, I'm just letting you know.
okay?
But
Just
that's what
FYI, some women peak
yes,
after menopause or
and some
during.
men do too.
Just,
For the most part,
FYI.
men peak later. But um, my point is like it's from my perspective. I've watched things that are just like, oh, I don't need to see that. I don't need to see that again. But there wasn't anything that was so graphic that was gratuitous. Do you know what I'm saying? It was
Right.
intense, and I
Yeah.
think and I also think it might be that the chemistry was so good and the tenderness was so palpable that it's hard to watch because we've been conditioned to think that gay sex is one thing where that is not tender at all, or it's like over here. Everyone wants to put it in a compartment, right?
Well, let me give
So
you an example though about that because this was a little intense. Do you remember this one? The scene
I
where he
remember every
says,
scene.
"Get on the dirty bathroom floor and suck my beep."
Yeah,
Like things like
exactly.
that was intense. Like that's intense. You
But
But I've
know?
seen hetero do that too.
yes, and I've
For
seen I mean,
yes.
we've seen that. We've seen that. I've seen a lot of things like that. But I know what that was. That was Ilya playing a Russian trying to be dominant. So that gets us into the whole thing. He played him, and listen, talking to a man who's had several Russian lovers, okay? He played him exactly as they are because they literally feel so much that, and they've been trained. And speaking of what's sad to me is that he's from Russia. He can't come out. He would be killed. Literally, he
Right.
would be killed. That's ingrained in them. And you see
Yeah.
how his father talked to him. And even though he knew he
Yes.
was the
Oh.
star of the family,
Mhm.
he could never be himself in Russia. So, and I've met several of these men who have come to the United States to seek that kind of freedom, and
Right.
but it never leaves them because it's ingrained.
Oh.
And so to
Yeah.
watch him like just act that and then see how it like whittled away by his love for Shane, like at the end, where in the last episode, spoiler alert, the way he's taking care of him at the table when he's
So
having an autistic
compassionate.
freak out.
Okay.
And it was just, you're just watching that and you're like, I don't think I've ever had anyone take care of me like that in my
Mhm.
entire life. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's absolutely a special relationship, um, a rare one that we all don't get to actually partake in. I mean,
Mhm.
there's absolutely that. But Stephen,
Yeah.
can I ask you a personal question? And you can feel free not to answer it. But growing up in New York, like I always say
I
growing
didn't
up,
grow up in New York. I grew up in
I'm
Ohio.
saying in our 20s. I didn't,
Yeah.
my sentence
'Cause
was,
you're
Oh,
still a
I
kid
always
in your
say
20s.
growing up in New York because we
Yeah.
became ourselves in our 20s, kind of
absolutely.
in New York, in this world, the entertainment industry, fashion, photography. Did you feel comfortable there being gay? Or
Oh, absolutely. But you have to remember, absolutely, so many of us are in that industry is because we only had a few industries to go to that were safe. And when I was
makes sense.
in the 80s, it's like we had to go if we wanted to live a semi uh, out life, we had to be in a major city. We had to be in New
Well,
York,
Yeah.
Miami, LA,
I have
Chicago.
Yeah.
two friends from that era that were married that 15, 20 years later came out. But they were prominent players in the world, agents representing artists or, an artistic director at a advertising agency. So, they felt
Absolutely.
the
Which
need
is
to hit that level of manpower at the top.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting you bring that question up because that's also why this is so poignant. Like I was going to read you some of the threads, but literally this healed me in ways that we didn't know we needed healed. What this shows me is how freaking brave I was at 22
Yes,
years old to
yes,
be who I was.
yes.
That I
Mhm.
left my family, that I left my friends, that I moved to a place. And I think what I walked away with, I can't speak for anyone else, is wow, how amazing was I that I could do this back then? And so then you're emotional, and it's like the emotions are just up and down because it's sadness, it's joy, it's pain, it's healing, and I think everybody takes something different away from each episode. But like to your point about when we were young, I only wish that these kids that I meet here in Ohio, that I've been here now taking care of my dad, could have the freedom that I had or we had in our 20s. Even the girls. Like, think about how you guys thought. You were empowered. You were in control of your bodies. You were in control of what you wanted to do. That has been taken away.
Mm,
The patriarchal system is back in full force. And
yeah,
you see it here with all the girls who look exactly alike and they look exactly how they think the boys want them to look. There's no individuality. There's
Mhm.
no, they all look the same. They all look
Mhm.
exactly the same.
Mhm.
Straight hair. They all look
Long,
like
part in the
they all want
middle.
to be
Yeah.
yeah. They all want to
Mhm.
look exactly alike because the male dominated society once again is telling them this is how they're supposed to look. And the thing about our industries, yes, we were creatives. Some people were artists, but we knew that would be a safe haven. And yes, there are lots of people I knew that probably were stayed in the closet, but that's I think always prompted the conversations because so many of the people that you knew, including myself, were brave enough to come out. So then it started, well, who isn't? So who isn't brave
Right.
enough to come out and how,
Yeah.
why? And that was always the conversation. And it's funny because I've flipped because now it's not even important. Unless I want to have a relationship with you, what you are it shouldn't matter to me at all. And I think some of the kids in the younger generation, that's where they've gotten to where they've pushed the boundaries with the sexuality thing, the pronouns and all this, because they're trying to deviate from what they see going on around them with their other peers, which is, oh, we have to look exactly this way because, Bobby on the football team says that we have to look like this. And I think, the pendulum swings, right? It swings. I think it was swinging to the left when we were young, and then it swung back for various reasons. Yes, I had moved to Columbus to come out. I met my first group of gay friends, and it was the best time of my life up
I
until
was
that
gonna
point.
say, what
Because I never had an adolescence like most heterosexuals, that's where you see a lot of the gay people living out our teens in our 20s. We
Mm.
were having
I can
the
see that.
rendezvous and the fun. And so that's what
Being
happened.
free.
And being free. Because even when I moved to New York, there was always the thing in my mind was, well, I won't live past 30. 30 is going to be where we cap
Why?
off on.
Why'd you think
Why?
Well,
that?
because honey, everyone was dead of AIDS. When I
AIDS.
moved,
Oh, okay.
when I moved to New York, everyone was my age, 22, 23, up to 30. You had some people between 30 and 35. And then there was nobody from 35 to 50-ish. And most of the guys who were still alive in their 50s were couples that became couples during the pandemic. I mean, without the
Yeah.
first pandemic, during the
Yeah.
AIDS pandemic,
Yeah.
and stayed couples.
Yeah.
So that's how they stayed safe. And
Yeah.
so there were no role models. When I moved there was nobody 45 and successful. There was no one 50 and handsome and good looking. And you kind of knew, you stayed away from anybody that was over 35 because you assumed that they were HIV positive. And there was no medication there and there was no
Oh.
cure. And even that was an act of defiance. Even just being there and doing and being who we were and going out to bars and clubs and meeting people, that you didn't ask that question first. You met people, you connected, and then, that maybe came up later, but also the way that I was socialized. I never planned for a future because I never thought I was going to have one.
Oh, well, that's sad. I got to tell you
Right.
something. I have to bring up this really quick story. When my first production job in New York City, working for Leslie Simage Photo Production,
Oh my
we
God,
were in a
Leslie
big
Simmons.
building at Lafayette and Prince, and there was
Yeah.
a gay architect who worked in the building too. And I knew he had gotten AIDS, and every day we'd come in, he'd have spots on him, and
Oh,
he would
yeah.
put
Oh,
makeup
yes.
on him, and then that was just for a few months, and then boom, didn't see him again. And I always think of that. So when you bring up AIDS, it just breaks my heart. The gay male population had to go through that. That is just heart-wrenching.
The first line of defense are all of the lesbian allies. They were the first ones that were helping all the gay men in the 80s,
I
you
hear
Madonna.
you.
know, and
Yeah,
well, it was celebrities. But the other thing that we have to remember is the reason this couldn't have been made in the 80s is because we were facing that pandemic
yeah,
that this government wasn't even talking about. The only reason the Reagan administration said the word is because Nancy Pelosi and Elizabeth Taylor petitioned Congress. This was 1980, I think 85 or 87, after Rock Hudson died. Elizabeth Taylor was like, this is it. I have to do something. So she
Chills.
became an activist because she lost her friend. We couldn't have made this movie back then because we didn't have the research, we didn't have the drugs, we didn't have the things that could keep everybody healthy. That's why watching it today, seeing the unbridled passion, they're not talking about if they're protect. Of course, they were using protection, which it was very well done how they slid that in, no pun intended. But this, like they talked about the condom, like they still were talking about safe sex, right? They still were using, which is important. But this couldn't have been made in the 80s because the gay population was vilified by the
yeah,
by the right. If let's be honest,
yeah.
in the 80s it was just like today. The right wing was controlling the media, the right wing was controlling the narrative, and so for us at my age to watch something like this being made now, that's where the catharsis is coming from. It's like, had we been able to see this as teenagers, our whole lives would have been different.
Probably. Can you
That's what's
imagine?
so
Yeah.
prominent about the moment is here we have the MAGA regime trying to end LGBTQ, and then here we have Canada coming out with this massive, like, celebration of life and reality,
Absolutely.
Mhm.
and then now
Which is
we have let's bring this back up again, Stephen, Trump attacking Venezuela, taking
right,
the
which
oil,
we're taking the oil,
buying
which
it
is,
in.
invariably gonna hurt Canada's economy because of their oil production. But the funny thing is that's also why it's so amazing, because even in the times, to your point, Kristen, earlier, how you were feeling today, and the news about Venezuela and just everything. I
Anxiety.
mean, what an amazing antidote, right? Like, what an amazing this show could not have been made in the United States. And by the way, he said he shopped it around to different studios and they
Mhm.
all wanted him to change it. They wanted to take
Yeah.
that sex. They wanted to change, and he said absolutely not. So
Mhm.
this is a
Amazing.
prime example of what happens when you stick to your guns, you follow your gut, you don't change from your artistic interpretation or your artistic expression. And back to Madonna, who's, look at Madonna. Remember the Blonde Ambition tour, 1990. The Pope, they denounced her. They all these things, and she stuck to her
NATO.
guns.
Mm.
Sinead O'Connor, all of them
Mhm.
sticking, and look how we revere them now. We know that's always the best choice. Is like, stick to your guns, stick to the artistic interpretation that you know is right.
Entertainment industry is so notorious and so great for speaking our mind.
Well, it
We will
was, it
not
was,
lay down and
yes.
die.
I think all the boardrooms are really scratching their heads because they can't understand it. And if it pushes pushes the envelope, so to speak, that's great. But it's still the fact that it was made by Canadians in Canada. Oh, I think the only American is possibly the lead, Connor Story. I think the rest of them are all Canadians. The nuances with which this was created, the tenderness, the execution, this would not have happened in
I
America.
mean, we
Mhm.
did have Brokeback Mountain.
We did have Brokeback Mountain.
Mhm.
That was dumbed down a little bit, if you will. You talk about the sex scenes. It was also unrealistic a little bit, but in the sense that it was an amazing film and it was beautiful. But I am sure there were scenes that were cut from that movie because they just thought It's too
America
much.
can't handle it. Yeah, I
And
hear you.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a great love story. And it was but once again, a tragic love story.
So sad.
He gets bludgeoned by a bunch of good old boys,
Mhm.
and the wife lies and says he got hit in the head with a tire. So again, it's tragic. It's always been tragedy, and it's almost as if the powers that be in this country would not allow a happy ending.
Mhm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because and that's a message they're sending out. And to live with that, imagine there were no happy endings. When I grew up, when I was coming of age, it was all films about AIDS. Longtime Companions, fantastic film. Die, die, die.
Philadelphia.
Philadelphia Story. Die,
Yeah.
die, die.
Yeah.
All anything that was mainstream
Mhm.
was tragic. To have something that isn't, I mean, we don't know how it's going to end, but that's also the anticipation. I haven't read the books. I'm going to go buy I'm going to buy the next in the series so I can see what happens before, or maybe I'll start from the beginning. You know, I also think it's amazing that we're seeing this renaissance of reading with the younger generation. So this is also why it's struck a note. They've all read the books, so they already know. You know, they've all read the books. You know, and yeah, it is. It's like, and I always said, film has so much power. And even TV, we think, oh, streaming, but if it's really good, it's going to capture the zeitgeist. Remember Downton Abbey, really good, right?
Loved
Captured
it.
everybody.
Mhm.
Game of Thrones, another HBO,
Mhm.
captured the zeitgeist. Sex in the City, back in our day,
Mhm.
it captured the
Well,
zeitgeist
and back
of
in
our
our day,
entire
30-something captured everybody
30
Yeah,
something,
I love
exactly.
that.
Designing women. So,
Mhm.
but
of the
they're
time.
all done so well. That's the key. When it's done for art's sake and not for money,
Mhm.
Makes you feel
it's always gonna have this effect. I'm interested to hear your perspective, and I thought you'd have more comments about, you know, the production elements of it, but warranting people to go back and watch, because I had to go back and watch the lighting. Every time they showed Ilya, it was blue lighting or it was like a harsher lighting. It was when he was, you know, being very Russian. And then
Mhm.
when they're
Oh,
together,
really?
it's pink or it's yellow, it's golden. In episode 3, the entire episode is shot in a golden hue because it's much more tender, and
yeah,
it's just interesting that
refreshing.
all of these elements are adding up to the experience that we see when we're watching it, and we don't even know.
You
Yeah.
You
don't
know?
even know. I was just gonna say, I will go back and watch more because I was so the subject is so enthralling. I was just like felt like I was reading a book and I wanted to keep turning the page, you know.
Yeah,
Mhm.
exactly.
That
And then picture this. They filmed everything in one big studio with that big screen. It's like a wraparound screen.
Mhm.
That screen was uh the sunset. That screen was Vegas. That
Mhm.
screen was the restaurant. That
Yeah.
screen was
Mhm.
Sochi. So they were telling how they had to film, and because of the tight schedule, sometimes they had to go in and like with Hudson's character Shane, he had to film in the same place from one was 2008, one was 2017, and he had to be a whole different character. And you can, if you go back and watch, he is a whole different character. His face, his everything. It's just, and so you're like, wow, like
Mhm.
how do you do that? And they did it in the same day. So the actors were all incredible, and it's a testament to their talent. I
sure.
pray that they go on to do amazing things if you know if that's what they want. But I'm also worried that they're going to have so much exposure and they're going to be Americanized in a way where by the time they do the next series, we're going to not have the same kind of naivete, if you will. You know what I mean?
Mhm. Yeah, I hear
Well,
you.
maybe they'll keep it fresh. Maybe they'll pull some things out of their pocket that we're not ready for. It'll be cool.
Well, I did read from Jacob Tierney, the director, producer, and writer, that he's not going to wait as long as 2 years. He's going to try and have it out within like 18 months. So that's good. But I
Good.
encourage everyone to go back and rewatch it, because once you get past, you know, the smuttiness of it, as they say, then you can start pick up on all the other things. And let's give a shout out to the female characters in this thing. I mean,
Mhm.
finally they're represented, like you, like my friends, like they're not desperate women hanging on to gay men. They're not living vicariously through their gay friends. They're amazing. Like the character of Rose, the actress, to be able to have those conversations with someone that you were going out with. If that would have happened to us, you know, back in the day, that would have have altered things because we would have known we had a safe space because we weren't sure what the outcome would have been if had we had those conversations.
Yeah.
Like the mother, I mean, apologizing if that broke my heart. Even the dad, of course, the dad's going to react, and the way that the women, and especially the friend of Kip, she's like, girl. She's telling him like this is happening because oftentimes we don't believe it ourselves. We're like, is this really happening?
Good point, though, is that this series takes place now.
Well, no, it's 2017. It's 2008 to 2017.
All right, no.
No,
In the 90s is different, so you didn't have
absolutely, yeah. No, that didn't come out until like, yeah,
She's like, "Girl," and he's like, "Dude."
dude, yeah.
Okay.
It's like it was just so that whole episode was so endearing, but also
Yeah.
episode 5 was the killer, especially in the beginning of 6 when Scott gives his speech. You're trying so hard to hide who you really are, which, it's incredibly exhausting and it's incredibly lonely. And that can speak to, then we can flip it back to the politics of the time. All of these people in MAGA and our administration who are really hiding who they are, eventually it's going to come out. Eventually it's going to come out.
Let's look at the GOP. Almost weekly, we'll see another GOP guy getting busted for having child pee on computers.
Exactly.
So they are hiding and they're all deviant.
Right.
It's not
And
even
that's the
gay,
problem.
it's just like
Exactly. It's not that's not even orientation. That is, they have been hiding who they are for so long. And they found a group that makes them feel comfortable because they're with a bunch of other people who are hiding who they are. So it makes them feel like, oh, we can do this. We all know who they are, what they do. At this point, you have a gay sixth sense. You can tell, you can see how they're reacting.
Project all their fear and everything on the LGBTQ, culture because they have so much guilt in their heads for what they're.
Would venture to say they're not just projecting that. They're projecting their deviance on us. We're not deviant.
Right.
We don't behave that way. They're projecting that onto us because it's what they cannot admit in themselves. That's where the vehement comes in, right? Because it's like, otherwise, what's the point? Who cares? You know what I mean? Like we've seen it all. Why are you so worried about what people are doing in their bedroom?
Right. Has nothing to do with you. Doesn't affect you. Doesn't touch you.
Exactly.
All these things. It's just their own.
I just want to tell everybody to watch it because I really think that it is a moving story. I think that it tells it. You learn a good lesson. Be kind, be humble, tell the truth, accept people for who they are, and it was just a really good story. And I encourage people to watch it. Heated Rivalry.
Wonderful truth, celebration of life, reality, the human race. Like here we are.
It doesn't make either one of you want to go take up hockey.
Yeah, it's too cold for me in those rinks.
Well, I tell you what, now it's too cold for me, but now I'm going to go watch it. That's for sure.
I was going to say, I'll probably start watching hockey.
I love that they call it the boy aquarium.
That's funny.
That's the new word for the hockey rink is the boy aquarium.
I never heard that. That's funny.
Well, I just want to say, here's to many, many, many seasons of Heated Rivalry.
Yes. I'm so in awe of all of the talent and all of the ingenuity it took to get that together.
Well
and
done.
you know what? I'll give kudos to HBO. I've always loved HBO and they've always taken chances and they've taken risks. And I hope they don't stop, even if they have a new owner. And I just hope that maybe people will start saying, wow, we need to do more authentic, real stories that, that just touch people. And it doesn't have to be a blockbuster. It doesn't have to be, it's not about the bottom line.
Yeah.
And I'm happy for the musical artists that are gaining some newfound fame right
now. Oh my God, it's amazing, right?
In their pockets, and there's so many levels of all that stuff. Yeah.
This is think about just what this one series will generate in income for so many people, which is amazing, right?
Yeah.
That's the American dream,
Yeah.
Do a job and you can get more people working and so on and so on and so on. The domino.
And my American dream is that I'll work for Jacob Tierney and at his production company because I think they're incredible.
That's a good
right?
goal.
Good one.
Yeah.
That's a good goal. That's definitely a good goal. You got to DM him.
I'm going to do it for sure.
Well, thank you so much for coming on and talking about this today.
Thanks for talking about it, guys. Because you both know I've been obsessed with it as everybody else in the world. And it just launched in Europe, so we haven't even felt that wave. but it just opened in London over the weekend. It just
Massive.
went streaming on Sky. So it's going to be interesting to see the Brits, the French. Like I can't wait for the Europeans to start commenting on all of it. You know what I mean?
I
Yeah,
love
yeah,
it.
Yeah.
Love it.
So anyway,
All right. Well,
Well,
thank you so much for it. We really appreciate you.
please, thank you
And
for having me again.
and for everybody who watched this, please drop a like, subscribe, ring that bell, follow us, drop us a message. We'd love to hear from you. We want to keep this going, and we
Yeah.
really appreciate you. God bless.
let us
Yeah.
know what you all thought about Heated Rivalry. I would love to hear.
We'd
So,
love
Yeah,
to get feedback.
we'd love to hear your feedback and comments. Thanks, guys.
Yay.
yes.
All
Ladies,
right.
thank you again.
All right.
Enjoy the rest of your day.
You too,
Thanks.
Stephen.
Have a happy
Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Sunday.
Bye.
Cheers.